Hey there, sexy people. So today's video is going to be the second part of the YouTube series, Bukkit Development. So this should probably go up in about a week. I'm thinking of releasing these every Sunday. I'm just going to release an episode just to keep them spaced and keep them on a schedule at least. So you can look for these once a week on Sundays, and I'll try to release the beginner Javas on like a Wednesday or something like that. Something to offset it. So today we're going to be doing a Who plugin, as I discussed in the last video. There should be a link above, so you can go and check out the last video on setting up a server in a local test environment. We set up this little server right here that you have, and it's pretty basic, pretty easy. So go check that out if you don't have a local environment to test this already. But today we're going to be doing a Who plugin, so you can see who's online. It's going to be very, very basic, and it's just going to show you a little bit of the Bukkit API, and we'll get a little more advanced as the tutorials progress. So first off, tongue's stumbling over words today. First off, you'll notice that we're in a different workspace with no projects this time, and I've also cleaned it up a little bit to make it how I prefer it. But if you want to switch out of your workspace so you don't get all your project cluttered up, you click File, Switch Workspace, and then you go to Other. So see, I have a few already cached right here that I use quite frequently. But you click Other, and then you scroll to the folder where you want it. So now that you're in the workspace, you just click New. We're going to create a new project, and we're just going to be uncreative and call this Who, just for the simplicity of it. Also note that I'm on Java 1.6, so I'm not going to be taking advantage of the 1.7 features, because it's not, even though it's been out for a while, I haven't been bothered to update to it yet. First thing we're going to do is we're going to need to link our libraries against Bukkit to say that we're using the Bukkit API, so that it knows, just like all the system libraries, like the JOption pane stuff we did in the beginner tutorials. This one's going to need to know that we're using Bukkit. So you right click on the project, click Properties, then you go to the build path here, and you go to Libraries, you click Add External Jars. And right away you'll see that it goes straight to the folder. Yours might not, but you're going to need to go to a folder that contains your craftbukkit.jar that you're using. It doesn't have to be named craftbukkit.jar, it can be named whatever the hell you want it to be named, as long as it is the craftbukkit.jar. So we're just going to take the one from our test environment, because that's what we're going to be running on, and we're just going to click Open. So now that you see it's in here, and if you click it, it'll give you some generic information. But just to click OK, you don't need to look at that. So now that it's linked against CraftBukkit, you'll see it pops up in reference libraries here. It'll say CraftBukkit. We're going to create a package, but we're going to do the better method of creating a package as opposed to creating a package and then a class. We're just going to do it in one. So you click this little button here to create a class. Then we're going to name this class. First we're going to name the package. The package we want it in is unique to us, so I'm going to name mine ca.vanZeben. Your package, again, they should be all lowercase. I went over this in my beginner's tutorial, but they should be lowercase by convention. We're going to do ca.vanZeben, which is typically just your URL that you own, or like me.john or whatever you want it to be named, and then just what the plugin's about. So this is going to be a Who plugin, so we're just going to be uncreative and say Who. The name of the main class, this will kind of be like in Java, it'll be like the public static void main class. It'll kind of be like that, but this is for Bukkit. So we're just going to call this Who main. Okay, so now that the class is created, we're going to need to extend a Java plugin. Now what a Java plugin is, it is something in the Bukkit YML that says, or not the Bukkit YML, sorry. It's something in the Bukkit API that says that this is this plugin needs to be called, because this plugin is using Minecraft API, and it's a plugin that I'm using, essentially. And there is a Java plugin that has a bunch of functions in it, and we're going to extend that and add implementation to those functions. I'll go over some more abstraction layers and stuff like that in the beginner series, but for the moment this is a good enough explanation. So we're just going to extends Java plugin. This is the keyword extends Java plugin. You'll notice it comes up red, and I went over this as well, but there's a shortcut. Instead of just right-clicking down here to import it and all that, what you can do is, if you're on Mac, you can hit Command, Shift, and O, and it'll just automatically import whatever. It'll also clean up the imports. If you do like a .star, it'll clean all those up and make them all nice and pretty for you. So that's a very simple way to clean it up. There's also Command-Shift-F to format things, like you'll see that curly brace just moved over one. Formatting preferences, I've changed mine a little bit. But if you go to Preferences and you search for Format, here it is, and go to Code Style and Formatter, then you'll just need to make a new one and hit Edit. Something you will want to do in this is go to indentation, and you'll need to use spaces to indent wrapped lines, and you'll want to change this to spaces only, because you don't want to be having tabs in your code, because it's going to be bad when we get to the YML stuff, so just do that. I've also changed the default line wrapping, which is originally 80, but that's a little small for my screen, so I changed it up to about 120 so that it gets it a little bit farther over. But not so much that it will completely wrap the screen. I just wanted enough so that it'll stop around here somewhere. Anyways, so what this whoMain class does is it'll have two functions in it that will get called. One will be an onEnable, and this function is going to get called when your plugin first enables. So first we need to @override, and this is going to say that we're overriding a method in the original Java plugin class, and the class that the function that we're overriding is public void onEnable, just like that. It takes no parameters, no arguments, no nothing. You'll see that now all the errors have cleaned up because we've overridden that one. The second one that we're going to be overriding is onDisable. Okay, so it's the complete opposite of the enable, and it runs when you disable your plugin. Okay, these functions, your onEnable will mainly be used for setting up stuff in your plugin, like internal data members and stuff like that, and your disable would be used for closing connections and stuff like that for when your plugin stops running. Okay, so now that we have those two functions, we're going to do a simplicity function. Okay, so whenever your plugin does something, we want it to log it to console to say that I'm doing it. So that console knows. What console is your terminal when you run your plugin, is all that stuff, that garbly gunk that comes out. So we're going to put some messages there for you guys. So first we need to get a logger, and what a logger does, first I'll do the syntax and then I'll explain it. It's private logger, and we're just going to name it logger. This is the variable, this is the name of the variable, and it's going to be equal to logger dot get logger, and in the brackets Minecraft. What this essentially does is it gets a logger, it gets a reference to the console, so anything that we send to this logger will get redirected into the console window for us. Now that we have that, we're going to make a function here, public void info, and it's going to take a string message, and this is essentially just going to send a message to that console thing, because we could do it straight through here, but we want to give some information about what is sending that message. We want to say that my plugin is sending this message to you. So this is going to do logger.info, which will send an info message to the thing, and in here we're going to put a string message. We're just going to put two brackets, and because this is the generic, like every plugin developer kind of runs off this style. Not too sure why, but they just do. Oops. Get name. There's going to be a space after it, so that this will essentially put a bracket, the name of the plugin, another bracket, and a space, and then we're just going to append message to it. And we don't need that line. So this info window will now just, whenever we call this function with a message, it'll send it to the console. Now what we're going to do on the onEnable is we're going to do this.info, which is calling this function, and the message is going to be enabled. Just to say, hey, we're good, we're done, the plugin's ready. And respectively for the disabled, just to say that we're done with the plugin, and the plugin's done and it's over. Now, next things next, we need to create a plugin YML. Now what this is it's a bunch of, it's essentially it's a YML file, which is kind of like a configuration file that explains what's in the plugin and stuff. So we're just going to create it in the source folder. We're going to name it plugin.yml. This is going to contain information about where the main class of this plugin is. I don't want to open it in that text editor. I want to open it here. You can change those kinds of options in the preferences as well, but just dragging it over here will work as well. But anyways, so the name of the plugin, these are the type of things that we're going to set. There's a list, I'm going to put a link in the description about what you can set in here so that you can look through that and see what you need to set. There's a bunch of different variables that you can use, but these are the ones that we're going to use. So the name of the plugin is going to be who, just because we're lazy. The main is whatever the main class is that contains your Java plugin. So this is the location to the who main. So we need to type the package ca.vanZeben.who, and then we got to put a dot because now we're referencing a plugin there, or a file inside there, and we're going to go who main. Okay, so now it's saying we're using this file here. the version number. Many people have different syntax for different styles and how they do their versions. I typically do it by the year, the month, and then the day. That's typically how I get this set up. In a week's time, it'll be a lot more than that, but that's how I typically do it. Just for simplicity's sake, it's something easy to read instead of having some random number like version 0.1, 0.2. It's just something that I do. This is the day that it's released. Now we're going to use authors. There is also an author tag if you just want to have one author, but this is a comma delimited field, so we could put like vanZeben, Johnny Cash, etc., etc. We can put whoever we want in this thing. I'm just going to leave my name in it just for now. And then we're going to have commands, because we're going to use a command here. So we're going to hit enter. We're going to type 4 spaces, or a tab if you have the spaces, but you cannot use an actual tab character. YML does not support tabs, so use spaces instead of tabs. Then you're going to type your command name. So our command name is going to be who for this one. Now we need to type another 4 spaces, and we're just going to verify that there was 4 spaces here, which there were, so that's good. Now this one is going to be some different options inside the commands. Now this command, we're not going to need the description. We could fill that out. We could fill out a bunch of different information, but we just need the aliases. aliases. And what these are a list, a comma delimited list inside these brackets of what other commands redirect to this who command. So we're going to take the online command, so when people do /online, we're going to take list, so when people do /list, and player list when people do /player list. So we're going to save that, and it should save it. There we go. We're going to go back to the who main, and actually, we're not going to go back to the who main. We're going to create the command class now. So we're going to click the new Java class, and we're going to call this who command handler. We're going to create it in a subdirectory here, cmds, just to keep it very structured so that we know where everything is. You don't need to do this if you don't want to, but when you get big plugins, you're going to need to do this, because otherwise everything's just going to look really, really sloppy. This one, it's kind of like how we extended some implementation here, but this one we're going to implement something, so we're going to use something. So implements command executor. What this is saying, and then command shift O. What this is saying is, this is an abstract class, or it's not an abstract class, sorry. This is an interface. What an interface is it's like a setup for what you can use. So there's a bunch of methods in here that need to be implemented by any class that implements this functionality. So I'm taking all the frameworks in here and I'm putting functionality to them instead of just extending the functionality. So we're going to add the unimplemented methods, and it's going to add this all garbly-gook here. On public boolean on command, there's a command sender. We're going to rename these variables though so that they're a little more applicable to computer lingo. So the command sender, so that's the sender who's sending the command. The sender can be a player, it can be console command sender. There's a few different things, but those are the 2 major ones that people use most often. The command, that's just the command. This string here is the command label. So it's what command's being used in the plugin YML. If we go back here, it's which one we're using. And this one is the argument. So if you type /command space 1 or command space 2, that 1 gets put into the arguments here. You'll notice that it returns a type of boolean. Now what that means is whenever this function is returning a false, it will show the little "this command cannot be found" because you're not using that command in this plugin. So if every on command, these little on commands, every time a command is run, they will get sent to every single plugin's main class. So we could, if we really wanted to, put this on command in here, and then we will have to go parse through it for what command is what and return false if we're not using it, but we are going to use it, so we're going to return true, because we're going to know that this command is part of the who command, which I'll do in a minute. But first we're going to put some functionality. Actually, you know what? First we're going to implement some interfaces stuff. So first what we're going to need in this plugin is we're going to need to get a list of the online players. And to get a list of the online players, it's a reference in here in this plugin. So we need to pass this plugin to this command here so that we can go back to this plugin and get information from it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable here called whoMain, which is the same as this one, and we're going to call it plugin. Okay, and we're going to import it with Command Shift O, And then we're going to create a constructor. And I don't think I've gone over constructors yet, but I might have. Constructors are something that gets called whenever this class is instantiated. So when this class gets created or gets called from somewhere, it's going to need these arguments or whatever you put in your constructor, and it's going to go right away. It's the first thing that runs whenever this class is loaded. And to create a constructor, you just type public, and then you type the file name, which is who command handler. Sorry about that. There. Who command handler. Now we have a constructor, and in this constructor we want the who main. So we're going to type who main plugin for the arguments. So whenever this plugin's called, or whenever this class is called, this class is going to require that you send us a plugin, this plugin specifically. And then we're going to do this dot plugin, because this dot plugin refers to objects in the class, and plugin is a data member in the whole class. So this dot plugin is equal to plugin. And plugin is equal to this plugin right here, this argument, whereas this dot plugin is equal to the class's plugin. Okay, so we could call this instance and put instance here, just to make you guys a little more aware of what links to what, and I think I'll leave it like that actually. You'll see now that this is going to throw a warning because it's never read. This plugin may, it does get set to instance, but it never gets really read. So that's what we're going to do down here. So first things first, we're going to parse out whether or not it's a player or if it's console that's sending it, because those are the two main. So we're going to say if sender is an instance of player. Okay, now player is an object in the Bukkit API, and we're going to hit Command Shift O to import it. You'll see it's imported right there. So that's an object in the Bukkit API that you can use, and every single player will have that same not this same object. They'll have an object of this type with different names, different information inside it. So then we're going to do some casting, and I did casting in a video with integers, but this is casting an object to another object. Okay, so we're going to cast the sender to the player object, right, like that. So this is saying the sender is a player, so treat it as a player. So now we have a player object that still is the sender, but it's got some more information on it for us. And then down here we're going to do else, and this one we're just going to do plugin.info, and then just a message for now. Okay, actually we'll type a string message. And we'll actually put this message up here, just so it'll go for both of these. So this one, it'll go back to who main, and it'll use this function, and it'll put the message there. And this one, we're just going to do a player.send message. If you do a player dot, you can see a bunch of different things in here, damage them, get their address, stuff like that. But we're just going to send them a little message right now. So that's all. Okay. Now right now, if you were to compile this and run this, this class would never run, because we haven't set anything in here to make it run. So when this onEnable is called, we're going to reference it there. So we're going to first create a variable of it. So we're going to do private who command handler, and then we're going to call it who command equals new who command handler, just like we've created objects before. But you'll see this time, you got to import it because it's in a different package as well. You'll see this time it's throwing an exception, and it's saying the constructor who command handler is undefined. Okay, and then we'll say add arguments to match. So we're going to just add arguments to match, and it's going to say null. That's not correct though, because null is nothing. We don't want that. We want to pass it this plugin. So we're going to say this, and we're going to that's going to send this plugin over to here, and then it's going to go into this variable for us, so that we have everything referenced locally. So now that that's made, we're going to tell Bukkit that we're using this command handler. So we're going to say this dot get command, get command, and the name of the command. So we named it in the plugin YML, we named it who. So we're going to type who in here, and we're going to set the executor, because do you remember how this was implementing the command executor? We're going to set the executor to who command, which is this variable here. So now Bukkit knows that the who command is linked to this, so anytime we want to do a who command, it'll go straight here. So we're going to save that, and I'm just going to format it and import it and fix the imports, just for not simplicity's sake, but just to get you in the habit of doing that, because it's always a good idea to make sure that you have all that kind of stuff sorted. So now we're in here, and if you were to compile and run this plugin, it would run, it would load, but it wouldn't say anything when you type this command. It would just say whatever's in here. So we're going to add some functionality to that. So first we're going to create a class. Let's make it a private class, and it's going to return a string. We're going to say get online user output. Output. Yeah, I spelled that right. And we're going to make an object called string output equals this for now, and return output. Now what this function is going to do is it's going to create the online list, and it's going to send it back to here. So to call that here, we're going to do this dot get online user output like that. So now the message will be equal to whatever we do in here. So it's still equal to nothing right now, so we're going to put something in there. So we're going to say online players, and then we're going to have a little listing of how many are online. So we're going to say %s/%s. Now what these %s are saying is we'll use those later in the formatting, but it's just saying that I want to replace a string. Like I want to replace this part right here with a string. And then we're going to put an equal sign and a space, and then we're going to do another %s. So there's going to be 3 different things that we'll need to pass this to. This is just so that we can clearly see what's being built without actually building out a whole list of stuff like that. We can just look right here and say, okay, it's going to say this. Right here is going to be a list of the online players, and this is just going to be how many are online right now and how many can be online total. Simple stuff. Now what we're going to do is we are going to get a function, private. It's going to return another string, and it's going to say format player list. Okay, and it's not going to accept. Actually, no, it's going to accept. No, it's not. No, I don't feel like accepting anything. So what it's going to do is we're going to need a return value. So we can call it return value. We'll call it output again, even though let's call it return value. And right now it's going to be equal to. We're going to make this equal to the first player. So we're going to say, actually, you know what? Let's take a variable here. We're going to take an array of online players. Don't worry about where this will get called from. We'll call this function in this function here, but this will be an argument passed. So we're just going to make this online players at 0. Dot get name. Let's do display name. There's a difference between display name and name. The display name is something that can be set, and it's set by some plugins to change people's names, stuff like that, like when you do a /nick, stuff like that. That's going to be the display name. If you don't want that and you want their original name, just do /.getName like that. But we'll use display name, just for fun. Now we're going to need a loop. And this loop's going to go through these online players, because this is an array, and I don't think I've gone through arrays. I might have, but I don't think so. And at this point when this is released. Arrays are essentially a collection of objects. So we can have an array. If we have an array of ints, and we're going to call this int bunch of integers, essentially it's a collection. So we can instantiate them like this. Okay? And that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different arrays in here. There's 5 different array values, and we can call this one by doing a bunch of integers at 0, like that, but we do that later in the code, such as this one. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Arrays always start at 0. 0 is the first element of an array. Okay, that's a basic explanation. You can check out the beginner video when it's up more about arrays and how they're used and stuff like that. But we're going to loop through them because we have all those arrays there. So we're just going to go through them. We're going to create a for loop. In this for loop, we're going to make a new variable called I. I stands for index, so it's just kind of like an indexing variable. I is just short because everyone knows it's kind of common for people to use an I instead of index just because it's such a small thing. And we're going to start at 1. Normally you would start at 0, but since we're already populating the first element, we're just going to start at 1. And we're going to say if I is greater, or if I is less than the online players dot length. So if I is less than the number of elements in this array, then we're just going to add 1 to I. We're going to I++. Okay? So this is going to be a loop, and it's going to go through all the elements in this array and just go one by one through them. So the first one, what we're going to do in here is we're going to add to return value. So we're going to add some string to it with a plus equals. This is a short form for to add to strings. And we're going to add a comma and a space. Since this one already has the first one, we don't need to worry about like putting this comma before things, because we're starting at the second element technically, because the array started at 0. So, and then we're going to add online players at 1, or at I, sorry, and .get display name. So every time this thing gets run, it's going to add a new player to this list. So it's just going to keep going and keep going until there are no more online players. Then we're just going to return value. Okay, so there's that format player list done. Again, essentially the function is just going to return a list of players. So it's going to return this value right here. So what that'll look like when you see it is it'll be like say John and Joe are online. It's going to return this, John and then Joe, just like that. That's what's going to be contained in the string if they're both online. If you have a Ringo on the end, there's going to be Ringo, etc., etc. It's just going to keep appending to that. So now what we need to do here is we need to populate these two ones. So what we're going to do is, instead of returning output, we're going to format it first. So you do string.format to format a string. And the first element here is the string that's going to be formatted. So we want to format output. And what we want to do to output is we want to add these three things to it. So this is the first thing that's going to get changed. And this is going to be how many players are currently online. So we're going to say this.plugin. This is where we're referencing the plugin again. And then we're going to do getServer. Okay, now this is going to get the server element. And in the server element, there's see right there, there's a list of online players with this array. So you see it's the same array as this one. So we're going to do that. And we're going to do .length, because that's going to show how many are online. And then we're just going to do a comma, because now we're going to put the second one in. And we're going to do this.plugin .getServer, again, to get the server. Then we're going to do .getMax players. And this is going to return an integer of how many players are online, or how many players can be online, sorry. And then we're just going to type the third one, which is going to be this player list. So this.format player list, and then we're going to do this.plugin .getServer .getOnline players. Ooh, players. Okay, so there's that. This is gonna call this function, which is gonna return that string that I showed you earlier, and it's also sending in the online list of players that we had. So there's your plugin. You can compile that now. I'll show you compiling, but that's essentially how you develop the plugin. If you already know how to compile, you can skip this because it's irrelevant. But essentially, to compile a plugin, you go up to here, your Package Explorer, you right-click on it, you click Export, and then you go to Java, jar file, click Next. The jar file, we're going to just generate them, and that's really all we need. Then we're going to click Browse, and we're going to go to Testing Server. We're going to put it in plugins, the plugins folder, and we're going to call it who.jar. Okay, so now that's going to put a jar file in the plugins folder. Click Finish, and then we're going to go and look at it, and we're going to go to Desktop, and we're going to go to Plugins, and you'll see the who.jar is created 514. It's 3 kilobytes, so it's a little, yeah, it's not big at all, but it's a little big for this kind of plugin. So we're going to do start.command, start up the server, and you'll see what goes on. So the server starts up and everything. You'll see it says it's loading who. It says that in the beginning. It says loading who again, who enabled. So what just ran was this. You see that your onEnable was called because it does say enabled, and it does have that who in here. So now we're going to type the command, and this is the command here, /who. We're going to type /who. It's going to say unknown command. Now this is a problem with console. It's not really a problem, but it's something that you guys don't know. So when you type commands into console, you cannot include this slash. The slash is irrelevant in console's eyes because everything is a command that's typed through here. So we're just going to do who. You'll see now it generated an exception. Here is your first exception. This exception, I'll teach you how to read it first. So it says unknown command type help for help first. Okay, that was with the other one, sorry. So it says org.bucket command exception, unhandled exception, executing the command who in the plugin who. So you know there's a problem in our plugin. So we're going to scroll down. All this stuff doesn't, this is just where this exception came from this kind of stuff. And oops, and if we scroll down here, Sorry, here's where we were. We scroll down, it's going to say caused by. That's the first line that you're really interested in. So you want to see caused by java.lang.array index out of bounds exception 0. What this is saying is it's saying that there's nobody online. It's saying that the array of players right here. Sorry, let me go over the exception a little bit more. It's right here, it says at, and it tells us where this exception is being thrown. This first line is always going to say where that exception was thrown from, the most recent location, and then you can backtrace it from the call stack. So you'll see it's first at the format player list at 37, so 37, let's toggle line numbers. 37 is right here. You'll see that this online players, that's where that exception was thrown from. Then you'll see the second one, at this line, get online user output, who command handler at 33. So we can go to 33 and you'll see that it calls format player list. And then you'll see if we go back one more, it'll say who command handler on command at 20. So if we look at 20, it's calling this function. So it just shows you a stack trace of what called what and how we got to this one. But this is where the exception is right here. And the exception is essentially being thrown because there aren't any people online. This 0 element, there's nobody to be there because this is going to be 0. So what we need to do is we need to put a check to see if anyone's actually online. We're going to say if online players dot length is less than or equal to 0. So there's nobody online. There can't be negative people online, but we're just going to say if it's less than or equal to 0 just to be safe, because you never know, sometimes some things go wrong. So we're going to put in here and we're just going to return none. There is cleaner ways of doing this. We could go up here and just say no online players. If there's nobody online, we could do all that stuff. But right now we're just going to return none. So that it says online players, 0 out of however many can be online. It's going to say equal none because there's no one online. So then we're going to export this, and we are going to export it as we did before. We're going to, stop that. We're going to go in here and we're going to start .command. We're going to open it up again. I'll full screen this so you can see it a little more. It's starting up. Permissions, so there we go, it's loaded. Right version's loaded. We're going to type who, online players, 0 out of 20, none. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to open my client now to also prove that it works in game. So this is my client. As you can see, I'm not going to update this because 1.3.2 just came out and I don't feel like updating my mods and stuff. But I'm going to connect to localhost 25565. I'm going to cut this here because with 1.3 my clients takes a while to connect to servers, 10 seconds. I don't know why. It's something that they did to it that it just makes a lot longer to connect to it. So I'm going to cut it and I'll come back when it is connected. Okay, so there we go. We're logging in and we're logged in. Okay, I'm going to show you this. Shows when you log into a server, it'll say vanZeben and your IP. This is my local host IP. You can try to connect to this, whatever. It's your local host environment. Don't worry about it. Ooh, why did that go? Oh, oops. So yeah, so we're connected to the game. We're in game, as you can see. Hello, hello, hello. This is my server. This is the new world that just generated. So it's a nice world, nice world. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for the who command. So we're gonna go in game. We're gonna type /who. It's going to say online players 1 out of 20, vanZeben. We can type /list, same thing. We can type player list, same thing. What else do we signify in here? /online, online, same thing. So you can see there's now 4 of them, and they all say 1 out of 20. Could also load up an alt account and do the same thing, but I think that you get it. We can go into console here and show it again, and it'll show vanZeben now. So that's your simple. So that's the simple online list for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I think I might have split it into 2 parts just due to length because I was explaining some things a little bit more. I might not have though, but I'll see you next time when we go into a little bit more, and I'll do probably a teleportation thing. I'll go into the an API that I developed to help developers kind of out to simplify things, because maybe you have some arguments to your command. Like right now we're not detecting them at all, but maybe you want to say who and then admins to see the admins. We don't do that in this plugin. Actually, yeah, let's extend the functionality of this plugin. Next tutorial, we're going to do this. We're going to do who admins and who players and who that stuff. That'll be the next tutorial. Simplify things. So I'll talk to you guys next game, and you can watch me as I go try and kill this creeper right now. But I will see you all next tutorial. Thanks for watching.